Today on MLB the Show 24, I'll be going over 10 pitchers who you need to trade for in your franchise modes. Later today, I'm going to have a very similar video, but instead I'll be going over 10 position players who you need to trade for. These guys aren't necessarily the highest rated pitchers in the game. I'm not going to be telling you to trade for Spencer Strider and Garrett Cole, but rather these guys are under the radar sleepers. None of these players are higher than 85 overall, but they developed very well in this game, and I had this backed up by science. I have done 2 separate 5-year simulations and have determined that these guys developed very well in MLB the Show. We're going to use the Rockies here because they are one of the worst teams in the game. They don't exactly have a ton of trade assets, but I'm going to show you that you can trade for these 10 pitchers without having to give up that much. We're not going to give up any of the Rockies' big assets, which, they don't have many, but of the select few, we're not going to give those guys up. But we're still going to get 5 really good starting pitchers and 5 really good relief pitchers who develop very well in MLB The Show Sim. We'll start things off with our 5 starters. Bailey Ober from the Twins is a really good option, along with the fact that he's a 6'9", 260-pound behemoth. He develops really well in this game. He's going to be one of the more expensive guys to get. You're going to have to give up a few decent assets, but nothing crazy, and you're getting someone who can legitimately develop into an ace, being that he is a potential. In the first 5-year simulation I did, he's developed pretty well. He's coming off a great year with Atlanta, and he still seems to be getting better at an 85 overall. This leads me to believe that he is not going to regress for you for a while. In the second simulation I did, he ended up even better. He's an 88 overall. Again, he's still getting better. Over the last 3 seasons, he has had an ERA below 3 in all of them. He's had a whip below 2 in each of them as well. And what you're going to notice with Ober is that he has high hits per 9 and high walks per 9. Those are the 2 most important attributes for pitchers in this game, so that's going to be a common theme here. Bryce Miller from the Mariners is the next player we're going to go over. He's only 25 years old. He has a potential, and he has less than 1 year of MLB service, so you'll have 6 years of team control with him. Again, being that he is a potential, he's going to be one of the more expensive guys in today's episode, but I think it's worth it. We're giving up a few older players in Ryan McMahon and Charlie Blackmon along with 1 prospect. I think this is pretty good value for a 25-year-old with a potential who develops very well in this game. I'm not sure if you're necessarily going to get an ace out of Bryce Miller, but if nothing else, you should get a high-end number 2 who develops very well. Here he is a 90 overall, very consistent. ERA below 3 twice, below 4 separate times. In the second simulation, again, he develops quite well. He's only an 88 here, but again, he should still be improving into his 30s, being that his potential is quite high. In terms of his numbers, even more consistent than the first simulation. He had an ERA under 4 all 5 times and has had a WAR above 3 in each of the last 3 seasons. The next guy we're going to go over is a lot cheaper to get than these first 2 players, mostly because he's older, and that's for lefty John Means from the Baltimore Orioles. He's only C potential. He's already 30 years old, but the hits per 9 and the walks per 9 are really good, and that generally means that he's going to perform very well in MLB The Show simulation, and you're really not going to give up that much to get him. 3 very mediocre prospects at best is all it's going to take to acquire John Means. Now, unlike the first 2 guys we went over, he's not going to be continuously progressing, being that he's already 30 and he's only got C potential, so he's probably going to be more of a rental for you, but if you look at the numbers, really, really good. ERA below 3 in each of the first 2 seasons, then he seems to drop a little bit, but you're getting 2 or 3 years of close to all-star production for basically no trade package. In the second simulation, he regresses a little bit more gracefully. He's a 76 overall. And even into the 5th season of the simulation, he was really good with an ERA below 3 and a super low whip. The next pitcher we're going to take a look at is another guy who isn't as highly rated. He doesn't have great potential per se, but he is fairly young to where he should still improve for you, and that's Garrett Whitlock with the Red Sox. Again, walks per 9, very high. The hits per 9 is a little bit low, but I think you can manage. So we're not going to have to give up that much. German Marquez, Benny Montgomery, both of whom have C potential, is going to be the focus of the trade package. I'm sorry if you enjoy hitting with your pitchers, and in that case, trading away German Marquez. But being that pitchers don't hit anymore, I think you can manage. Garrett Whitlock develops quite well. In the first simulation, he goes up to an 85 overall. He did have some questionable seasons in there, but an ERA below 4 3 times. and is overall a really solid middle-of-the-rotation arm. In the second simulation, he ended up even better. He's an 86 overall, although it does look like he's starting to regress. And he was really good, especially the first 3 seasons. In 2026 in particular, 2.7 ERA, whip barely above 1. He should consistently get a WAR above 3. And here in 2026, his WAR was basically 5, which is really good. It's hard for pitchers to get high WARs in this game. The final starting pitcher we're going to look at is Zach Eflin with the Rays. And if you want to do a 2-for-1, I would look at Drew Rasmussen as well with the Rays. But Rasmussen's a lot harder to get, being that he's younger. So we're going to go for Zach Eflin here for the sake of today's video. You're not really going to have to give up that much for him because he is 30 years old. And keep in mind, he is on a somewhat big contract, making $13.3 million over the next 2 seasons. But eventually, once he's off the books, he should sign for cheaper, and you'll be getting an older but still good middle-of-the-rotation arm. He doesn't regress too poorly through the first 5 seasons, and as we look at the first simulation, 4 of the 5 seasons, he was really good for the most part. As for the second simulation, he regressed a lot worse. He's a 77 here, so his regression might differ based on his performance throughout your franchise. But overall, he should still be pretty good. The first 2 seasons, he was a rock star here, 2.72 ERA in 2025. Unfortunately, he took a nosedive fairly quickly. But even as a 77 overall, he performed really well in this last season with the Mets. Let's now take a look at 5 relief pitchers who you should trade for. And being that these guys aren't starters, they should be even easier to trade for. Josh Winkowski from the Red Sox is a major sleeper in this game. He's only a 64 overall with C potential. He just looks like a regular guy, but trust me, he's not. All you have to do is give up an older, mediocre reliever, or possibly some prospects who never make the big leagues, and you're getting someone who's going to be a really good reliever for you, who's got 6 years of team control. In the first simulation, really, really solid. He's not ever going to become elite. You're not getting Edwin Diaz, but the numbers across the board are really good. In the second simulation, I would argue he was even better. Despite the fact that he's only a 77 overall, he plays a lot higher than his ratings suggest. And this is somebody who can give you over 100 innings per year. You don't need to use him in a setup or closer role. He didn't pitch in 2024 in this second sim, but in the other 4 seasons, he was really good. The one thing with him is that he doesn't strike out a lot of batters, only 5 Ks per 9. He only struck out 38 guys this year in around 61 innings. But if you don't care about high strikeout rates, then this is your guy. It's not like he doesn't throw hard. He has 99 velocity. He still throws absolute gas. Dari Moreta from the Pirates is going to be the second guy we look at. Only 73 overall, only C potential. Hits per 9 is really good. Now, I will say the walks per 9 is a little bit lower. So his results with you might be a little bit more up and down, but it's not like you're going to have to give up that much for him. And for some good seasons out of a 73 overall relief pitcher, I think it's worth it. He doesn't really regress too badly 5 years into the future. Now, I will say here, as we look at this first simulation, he actually didn't end up all that good, -1 season. This is the floor with Dari Moreta. The second simulation, he ended up a lot better. He's a 79 overall here. He still seems to be getting better. And overall, he was really good. He only had an ERA above 3 once, and even so, it was 3.23. Doesn't strike out a ton of guys, but still has a pretty good rate in terms of Ks. His walks in this game really aren't that bad if you improve that attribute, and obviously the hits per 9 is really good. The third player we're going to look at is Kevin Kelly from the Tampa Bay Rays. He's a C potential. He's a 76 overall, but he's got high hits per 9 and high walks per 9, and he also has high home runs per 9. He doesn't throw super hard, but I think it's worth it for a 30-year-old D potential starting pitcher in Austin Gomber, who's a fringe major leaguer who's not getting much better for you. Instead of Gomber, you can get a really good reliever who's got plenty of seasons of team control for you. Even if his overall rating is mostly not going to change, it doesn't really matter because his stats in this game are really good. Look at this last season, albeit in only 15 innings, 0.61 ERA. The ERA never really got high for him. The highest it was in this first sim was 3.51. What about the second simulation? Again, 77 overall. He doesn't develop all that well in this game. His Ks per 9 never really improves, but it doesn't really matter. In terms of his production, even better. The highest ERA he had here, 2.45. Multiple seasons with ERAs below 2. Multiple seasons with a WAR above 1. Kevin Kelly is a stud in this game, and you don't have to give up anything to go out and get him. The fourth reliever we're going to look at is Adbert Alzolay with the Cubs. He might be the most expensive reliever we go over today, being that he's an 82 overall with B potential, higher potential and rating than any of the other relief pitchers that we've gone through. But he's still not that expensive, and it's still worth it, I would say. You're not going to have to give up that much to get him. Maybe a starting pitching prospect and an older reliever you already have on your roster. But that's all it's going to take to get somebody who can be a really good reliever for you. And unlike some of the other guys we went over, his rating develops into the mid-80s. Now, he will start to regress eventually, being that he's going to be in his 30s soon. But his play is really consistent. In the first simulation, really good numbers. It starts to dwindle towards the end, but you're still getting 4 to 5 seasons of really good pitching out of the bullpen. In the second simulation, he hasn't really started to regress. He's an 85 overall. He still seems to be getting better. And as we look at the numbers, really good. ERAs between 2.5 and 2.98 in 4 out of the 5 seasons. And the other season wasn't too bad either. His second highest WAR of that stretch. The final relief pitcher, and thus the final player we're going to look at today, is Joe Barlow with the Chicago White Sox. He's only a 70 overall, but he's still got a lot of room to improve, being that he has B potential. He has super high hits per 9. His walks per 9, though, is a little bit shakier. But again, I don't think it's going to matter too much, being that he has a pretty high potential rating. You're not going to have to give up really anything to get him, but I think it's worth it. As we take a look at Barlow's development 5 years into the future, in this first sim, he develops into an 80 overall. He should continue to get better for you and may end up with 99 hits per 9. He had a pretty bad season in 2027 here, but other than that, the ERA never got above 3 in the other 4 seasons. In the second simulation, he moves up to an 83 overall with, again, 98 hits per 9. The home runs per 9 is really good. Ks per 9 and walks per 9 are in the 70s. That's not bad at all. Other than the first season, he never had an ERA above 3. Season 4, look at that year, 1.64 ERA and a whip below 1. Joe Barlow is an absolute stud, as is the other 9 pitchers we went over today, and we had to give up close to nothing to get these guys. During the second half of the video, I couldn't even trade position players, as you can see here, because we did not have enough on the roster to begin with. I could only trade pitchers, and we still were able to get all those guys for pretty cheap. So that's going to wrap up today's episode. I hope this video helped you guys finding some players for your franchise mode teams. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new for more MLB the Show 24 franchise content. Peace out.